Hello folks and welcome to this week's review. I am looking at a step-up transformer for moving coil cartridges. It's this little chunky box. It costs £779.95. It comes from the Japanese company Aurorasound, and you may remember 2 weeks ago I reviewed an integrated amp by that same Japanese company, Aurorasound, and I liked it very much indeed. You can see the review here. And in that particular integrated amp, it had a built-in phono amplifier. It only supported moving magnet cartridges though. So this little thing would be ideal for that integrated amplifier to support moving coil cartridges. This can be used with any moving magnet phono amplifier, incidentally, to do the same thing. So don't worry, I'm going to bring this to camera. I'm going to do a bit of a close-uppy thing. But as you can see, it's dinky. I wanted to show you like this, just so you get a bit of context, a bit of scale, as it were, just to show you how rather neat and chunky this thing is. Now, yes, I know that this box looks like a hip flask, but do not pour your Jack Daniels on this one, or it'll make a mess all over your floor. This dinky little gizmo is, as I say, a step-up transformer, which sounds a little like a school electronics project, doesn't it? But no, it does serve a purpose. It serves your moving magnet phono amplifier, as I say, and it serves vinyl in your hi-fi system. So what exactly is this thing? What does it do? And why do you need it in your life? In short, and short is where I'm staying in this particular review, because if I explain all the background tech, then this review will be over just 4 hours in length. You need this little box because the output from a moving coil cartridge can be very low indeed, and a moving magnet phono amplifier on its own will not be able to do the job. So a step-up unit works on the tiny moving coil signal. Then the moving magnet bit takes over once that tiny signal is being increased a bit. Moving magnet takes over that bit, does its thing, the moving magnet module, and then it passes that amplified signal, which has been further amplified, over to your amplifier. Now, before we ramble on any more about techie kind of stuff, I think we need to take a closer look. And welcome to the closer look section for the Afe-12 moving coil step-up transformer from Aurorasound. This is a neat, dinky and stylish passive box in an aluminium box, which has cavities. Well, everything has little cavities when you open up the outer chassis, little gaps here and there. Well, those gaps have been filled by, would you believe, cotton. Why cotton? Because it reduces vibration. Interesting, hey? Now, as I say, this is a passive box. There is no electrical current running through this one, which bodes well for low noise operation. It features transformers from the Swedish outfit Lundahl. There's also not much to it. Besides the inputs and outputs, there is a single toggle switch that allows you to change the input impedance to match different moving coil cartridges. There are 3 levels. There's 3 positions on the toggle switch. There are 3 levels. You get low, which is 0.7 to 10 ohms, medium, which is 11 to 30 ohms, and high, 31 to 100 ohms, spanning a meager 70 millimeters by 95 by 30 millimeters and weighing just under 250 grams. Now, the idea is that you hook your turntable to the Afe-12's inputs, then you run a cable from the outputs of the Afe-12 to the moving magnet phono amplifier of your choice. Now, as I say, this is an Aurorasound product, and as I've already said too, the recently reviewed Aurorasound HFSA-01 integrated amplifier sported an internal moving magnet phono amplifier, and that kind of setup, well, that's probably the biggest sonic test a step-up transformer can have. So, ideal then. And I hooked up the Afe-12 to that. Now, because of that built-in moving magnet phono amp, it'll be harder to get a decent sound from the Afe-12 because, well, inside any amplifier box, it's hell in there. There's vibrations all over the place. There's microphony doing all kinds of horrible stuff to the sound quality. All of that shenanigans does not help. So this test will be a challenge for the Afe-12. Even so, the question that springs to my mind is this: should you? That is, should you bother? Is it wise to connect a moving magnet phono amplifier that's stuffed inside an integrated amp with this external step-up transformer? Or, alternatively, would it just be better to use an external phono amplifier to lower the noise still further with everything outside of the integrated amplifier? After all, that's always been my philosophy, to separate, to isolate all components, to get them out of that integrated amplifier. So, should you just grab an external phono amp and be done with it? That's the big question, I feel. So, to test that, I dragged in a similarly priced external trichord Dino phono amplifier. That's one I've already reviewed. Did I do it on this channel? Definitely did it on the web. No, I think it was on the website. I think I did it on the channel. If I find the review, I'll stick a link up yonder. Anyway, I do highly recommend the Dino. It's a British English build, English design, very nice indeed. That one supports moving magnets and moving coil within. Now, if you compare the two, the trichord Dino and the Afe-12 from Aurorasound, there's a confusing amount of caveats here. All kinds of swings and roundabouts, you might say, between the two tech types. Where do I start? Well, stick with me on this, will you? Firstly, comparing the Afe-12 with the trichord is slightly off because the Afe-12 is an isolated and specialist and relatively expensive moving coil section all on its own. The trichord, on the other hand, contains both the moving magnet and the moving coil units, so the build budget is spread over two modules for that overall price. So the Afe-12 should really be a better spec and possibly better performance because you're spending all of that money on this one little module. Now, the moving coil section of the trichord, well, that isn't isolated. The Aurorasound is. The trichord one isn't. Why? Well, it's sitting right next to the moving magnet module, and they're trapped in a single chassis. So the Afe-12 should experience a lower noise floor just on that level. On the other hand, all of the trichord phono amplifier bits are external from the integrated amplifier. The moving magnet bit of my Aurorasound setup, though, is stuck inside the integrated amplifier, where all that horrible vibration and microphony exists. And the Afe-12 is plugged straight into that chaos. Thus, the trichord, being external and isolated on that level, should offer lower noise floor. So, as you can see, there's a big list of pros and cons all over the place, and you could tie yourself up with knots looking at each and every one of them. So you've got to work out which of the pros and which of the cons are most important, which are the most powerful, which are the most significant, which will do the most damage and which will offer the best sonic solutions. And the only way you're going to do that is to listen to the darn things. But before we do that, there is one test I did, a very simple test, and I did get a very obvious solution from that, and it's this. There's one immediate downside of having an external phono amp. You do take up a pair of RCA inputs. They're gone. because the phono amplifier is using them. In this case, there's only 3 pairs available. So you plug in your phono amplifier, you only have 2 left. Now that's not an issue with the step-up transformer because the Afe-12 plugs into the phono amplifier sockets. So using this step-up transformer, that leaves the inputs alone. You've still got 3 to play with. So after all that malarkey, how does the Afe-12 actually sound? Well, let's go to the sound quality tests and we will find out. And welcome to the sound quality tests for the Aurorasound Afe-12. Now, in terms of sound sources, I began with Julie London and the wonderfully smoky ballad version of Won't You Come Home, Bill Bailey from the 1966 album For the Night People. This track is nothing more than a laid-back vocal and a single acoustic guitar. Now, in this review thus far, I've talked a lot about noise, and one reason I chose this particular track on this particular LP is because this track, this recording, is relatively noisy. There is some inherent hiss present on the master, while extra noise at higher volumes seems to layer itself at the slightest opportunity. It's as if the recording levels were either set a little too high in the studio, or maybe they were adjusted high after the recording. I ain't sure. Hence, there is a wobbly sensitivity here, which is ideal to test phono amplifiers. So how did this step-up transformer sound? Well, in conjunction with the HFSA-01's internal moving magnet phono amp, the step-up transformer sounded seriously impressive. That's how it sounded. I was actually taken aback, to be honest, because I wasn't expecting the noise floor to drop, and it did. It dropped a lot, actually. There was a new sense of clarity here that allowed shy details to come through. Little frailties in the vocal delivery, for example, that just added emotion to this piece. Another element that hit me was bass. That's right, on a vocal and acoustic guitar piece, bass impressed me. Why? Well, it was the low frequency strings on that guitar, actually. There was suddenly a bass twang appearing from nowhere. This was a significant bass infusion, in relative terms that is, that added a slight swing to the smoky voiced ballad that only added to the overall appeal. The upper frequency strings were also now precise and exact, which gave the ballad an extra soulful groove. Allied to that precision, the vocal also enjoyed a new focus, which added extra pace to the delivery, but also improved our Julie's diction. Words started and ended with purpose now. In short, with the step-up transformer in place, the music was, well, transformed. I then moved, rather awkwardly I suppose, from Julie London to punk, which I don't particularly recommend, but hey, this can be a dirty job. I played the title track from the High Energy LP, The Revolution Started Closing Time, from the group Serious Drinking. Again, I was impressed. Corralling the diverse frequency mess from this LP was a tough ask, but the Afe-12 did this with some ease, I have to say, even revealing space in between instruments and vocals. Now, it's not often that I use the words punk music and clarity in the same sentence, but I'm happy to do so here. Individual instruments could be identified and followed with some ease, while the shouting chorus on one track did sound like a group of individual voices instead of some muddy blob. And that's basically the review of the Afe-12 step-up transformer. Let me give you a few final thoughts, then I'll give you some pros and cons, and finally a rating. When I started this review, I really wasn't expecting much. Hooking the Afe-12 to an internally fitted moving magnet phono amp, even one as good as the HF-SA01, well, I didn't think it would perform that well in moving coil terms. But I have to say, I was seriously impressed with the Afe-12. In fact, I have to admit, I preferred it to the trichord Dino, a wholly external phono amplifier. Now, from what I hear of the two technologies, the moving coil bit, the moving coil module, is the far noisier of the two modules. Much noisier than the moving magnet module. So isolating that moving coil section, well, maybe that's the priority here, the priority of the exercise as a whole. And I was looking at pros and cons at the beginning of this review. Maybe that's the most important bit. Maybe that's the true target here. It certainly seems that way listening to the Afe-12. Bottom line, I loved the Afe-12 step-up transformer, especially for the price. It's a stunning performer. Pros and cons. In the good section, we have a small footprint. This one will not take up too much space. Build quality. It's chunky, it's simple, but it feels solid. It's simple to use. There's not a great deal to this thing. You can be up and running in a short amount of time. General sound quality. Well, right across the frequency spectrum, I had nothing but praise. In the bad section, nothing at all, which is why I'm going to give this particular unit, the Afe-12 from Aurorasound, a stonking 9 out of 10 and a deeply groovy award. Congratulations to Aurorasound. And that's it, folks. Thanks for staying to the end of this video. Can I ask you, before you go, just down there, if you can click on the subscribe and a like buttons, that would be very nice indeed. And further down, there's a UK distributor link. If you want to buy an Afe-12 down there, that's the place to do it. There are other links to my Patreon page. You can access the exclusive to Patreon, Hi-Fi News, etc., which includes Hi-Fi News, music trivia quiz, hints and tips, all kinds of stuff. On Friday, oh, I didn't mention my Facebook group link. That's also down there. And my website link. Check that out too. Now, where was I? Yes, Friday. There's another video. It's Music Alerts. That'll be out on Friday, and I hope to have your company. Until then, folks, bye-bye for now.